All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain and deconstruct how modern e-learning is tackling what is, let's be honest, a notoriously dull subject, grammar, and somehow making it genuinely engaging. Let's see how they're doing it.
First things first, let's set the stage. For so many of us, the second you even hear the word grammar, it brings back some pretty specific and kind of tedious memories from school.
Sound familiar? I bet it does. That feeling of just sitting there in a super quiet classroom, staring at all these complicated rules on a chalkboard, trying to make it all make sense.
Yeah, it was all about endless verb conjugations, diagramming sentences until your head hurt, and just pure brute force memorization. The whole system was built on learning rules, not actually using the language. But what if you could just flip that entire experience on its head? What if learning grammar felt less like a chore and, more like solving a puzzle or maybe even going on an adventure? That's the exact shift we're going to explore. So let's dive right in with our first case study. This is an e-learning course for middle schoolers all about the future simple tense. And this is where we really start to see these new teaching ideas in action.
Okay, so the core concept is pretty simple, right? The future simple tense is for talking about stuff that hasn't happened yet. But the tricky part, the part that always gets people, is that it has two main forms, will and be going to. They seem so similar, but they're used in totally distinct ways.
And this is where the course gets clever. It just cleanly separates the two. Will is for things like predictions or decisions you make right on the spot. Be going to, on the other hand, is for actions that you've already planned out.
Now, to make this idea really concrete, the lesson uses a visual metaphor. This is so smart. Will becomes a crystal ball. You see this animation and you instantly get it. It's for making guesses, like what you think will happen or what the weather will be like.
And for be going to, what do they use? A calendar. It's this perfect visual shorthand for a plan, something you've already decided on. Like, I am going to visit my family this weekend. It's not a guess, it's on the calendar.
But how do you make sure that actually sticks? Well, the course uses a ton of interactive stuff. There are quizzes with these real-life scenarios, a really fun little animated story about friends planning their weekend, and they even give students a challenge to use the grammar in their own lives.
Okay, so that's the future. Now let's jump to our second case study, which gets into the past simple tense, how we talk about things that are already over and done with.
So the definition here is really straightforward. The past simple is for any action or habit that was finished in the past. I walked to school. I ate breakfast. Seems easy, but it has its own challenges, especially with all those irregular verbs.
This central visual metaphor here is time travel. I love this. The lesson literally has an animation that shows an action moving from a now timeline back to a yesterday timeline. It's such a simple but powerful way to visualize the past. And to deal with those tricky, irregular verbs, the ones that just break all the rules, the course turns memorization into a game. There's a match the verb challenge where you actively pair up the present and past forms, like turning go into went or see into saw. And how do they reinforce it all? You guessed it, more active learning. Students have to complete the blanks in a story about a trip to the zoo, and then they get a challenge to apply it themselves by writing about what they did last Saturday.
So after breaking down these two lessons, a really clear pattern starts to emerge. This isn't just about making things look cool. There's a real repeatable strategy at work here. So what exactly is the playbook?
It really all boils down to a four-part formula. Number 1, use powerful visual metaphors, like the crystal ball and time travel. 2, connect the grammar to real-life stuff kids actually care about, like weekend plans. 3, give them tons of interactive practice. And finally, number 4, push them to actively apply it. Altogether, these things transform learning from just passively sitting there to being an active experience.
And when you put it all together, you realize this isn't just a new way to teach grammar. It's a pretty fundamental shift in how we can think about education altogether.
The key takeaway, the big idea, is this shift from passively absorbing rules from a book to actively applying that knowledge in a way that actually means something. And this matters because it turns students from just being spectators into being active players in their own learning.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. If a subject as traditionally dry as grammar can be turned into this interactive, engaging adventure, what's stopping us from applying the same playbook to everything else?